Imagine this. You're a struggling single mother. You're broken, jobless, and living on welfare. Your tiny apartment is so cold that you can see your breath in the winter air. You wrap your baby daughter in blankets, trying to keep her warm. You're fighting depression so heavy it feels like a dark cloud that never lifts. And yet every night you pick up a pen and write a story that no one believes in. Would you still keep going? J.K. Rowling did, and that decision transformed her from a rejected single mom into the first billionaire author in history, the creator of a magical world that touched millions of lives. Joanne Rowling, known to the world as J.K. Rowling, was not born into privilege or fame. She grew up in a modest home in England, raised by parents who worked hard but often struggled to make ends meet. Her childhood was not gilded with luxury or opportunity. Instead, it was marked by ordinary routines, financial worries, and the quiet determination of a girl who sought refuge in stories. From an early age, books became her closest friends and her greatest escape. She devoured tales of magic, adventure, and bravery, and soon discovered she wanted not only to read stories, but to create them. At just 6 years old, she scribbled down her first story, a whimsical tale about a rabbit who contracted measles and was cared for by friends. By the age of 11, she had already completed a novel about 7 cursed diamonds and the people whose lives they destroyed. Even then, she dreamed of being a writer. But dreams do not erase reality. For young Joanne, the path ahead was far from clear or easy. She went on to study French and classics at the University of Exeter. After graduating, she found herself working as a secretary. It was steady work, but not the kind of life she had imagined. She often felt restless, as if she were meant for something more. Typing letters and filing papers was not glamorous, and the spark of fulfillment was missing. Still, the secret desire to write never faded. It remained a quiet but constant flame in her heart, even when she doubted herself. Then, in 1990, on a delayed train from Manchester to London, inspiration struck. An image formed in her mind of a boy who had no idea he was a wizard. A boy destined for greatness, though he came from humble beginnings. She didn't even have a pen with her that day, so she simply let the idea simmer, allowing it to grow richer and more detailed in her imagination during the long ride home. In that moment, the seed of Harry Potter was planted. But life was about to test her resilience in ways she could never have predicted. Not long after that train ride, Rowling's mother passed away from multiple sclerosis, a devastating loss that shook her to the core. Her grief was overwhelming. She had longed to tell her mother about the boy wizard living in her imagination, to share this bright spark of hope and creativity. But that chance was gone forever. That pain seeped into her writing, shaping the themes of loss, love, mortality, and resilience that would later define the Harry Potter series. Hoping to rebuild her life, she moved to Portugal, where she found work teaching English. There she married and had a daughter, Jessica. For a brief moment, it seemed like she might be building the life she had dreamed of. But her marriage quickly crumbled, leaving her alone, heartbroken, and responsible for a newborn child. Determined to find safety and stability, Rowling returned to the UK with her daughter in her arms. Now she was a single mother, unemployed, and uncertain about the future. She later described herself as being as poor as it is possible to be in modern Britain without being homeless. She lived in a small flat, relying on government assistance to survive. She often couldn't afford to heat her home, so she would bundle herself and her daughter in warm clothes and spend long hours in cafes, writing in the corner where it was warmer. It was in those quiet corners, surrounded by the clatter of dishes and the smell of coffee, that Harry Potter truly began to take shape. At the same time, Rowling was wrestling with deep depression. She later revealed that her mental health struggles during this period were so profound that they inspired the creation of the Dementors, dark, soul-sucking creatures in her books. She admitted that there were moments when she felt hopeless, when she wondered if she had the strength to carry on. And yet, despite everything, one thing anchored her: the story that had taken root in her heart. Writing became her lifeline. Rowling poured her grief, fears, and fragile hope into her manuscript. She wrote whenever she could during her daughter's naps, late at night, and in stolen moments of quiet. Each page was an act of defiance, proof that even in her darkest hours, she had not given up. Harry's world became her sanctuary, a place where she could transform pain into magic, loneliness into friendship, despair into triumph. When she finally completed the first draft of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, she felt a flicker of hope that perhaps her fortunes were about to change. But reality struck again. The manuscript was rejected again and again. 12 different publishers turned it down, dismissing it as unmarketable or too strange for children. Each rejection could have been the end, but Rowling refused to let go. She kept sending it out, driven by the same resilience that had carried her through personal tragedy and hardship. She was, at that point, an unemployed single mother battling poverty and depression, rejected by the very industry she longed to join. By all external appearances, she was failing, but in truth, she was building something extraordinary. With every setback, the story of Harry Potter only grew stronger because behind it was a woman who refused to surrender. 1 rejection, 2, 5, 10, 12. Every publisher she approached turned her down. Some said children wouldn't read a long fantasy novel. Others thought magic wouldn't sell. A few didn't even bother to reply. Rowling kept those rejection letters. They were painful reminders, but also proof that she was trying. Finally, in 1996, after countless no, a tiny publishing house called Bloomsbury agreed to take a chance. But even then, they were cautious. The editor told Rowling not to quit her day job because children's books rarely made money. The first print run was just 500 copies, most of which went straight to libraries. But Rowling didn't need the world's approval. She only needed one chance, and that chance was enough. When Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone hit the shelves in 1997, something magical happened. Children devoured it. Teachers recommended it. Parents read it aloud at bedtime. The book spread not by marketing campaigns, but by word of mouth. Kids who hated reading suddenly couldn't put it down. By the time the second book came out, Harry Potter was no longer a hidden gem. It was a cultural phenomenon. The series went on to sell more than 500 million copies worldwide, translated into over 80 languages. The books inspired blockbuster films, theme parks, toys, and an entire generation of readers. And J.K. Rowling? She went from a struggling single mom to the world's first billionaire author. Rowling's story isn't just about magical books. It's about the magic of persistence. She faced poverty, rejection, depression, and failure, but she refused to let them define her. Instead, she turned them into fuel. Her mother's death shaped the themes of her writing. Her depression created the terrifying Dementors. Her struggles as a single mom gave her the grit to keep writing even when no one believed in her. And she never stopped believing in Harry Potter, even when the world told her no. Rowling once said, "Failure meant a stripping away of the inessential. I stopped pretending to myself that I was anything other than what I was, and I began to direct all my energy into finishing the only work that mattered to me." Her failures became her foundation. Her rock bottom became the place she rebuilt her life. J.K. Rowling's journey teaches us this: rejection isn't the end, it's just redirection. Failure isn't final, it's part of the path. Rock bottom isn't where your story stops, it's where your comeback begins.